all beliefs are our own. I don't know. I feel like we need some disclaimer here.
Malware is a non-technical look at the tech news of the week.
This is a podcast where we learn together about everything from crypto to AI to whatever comes next in tech. I'm Natasha Hoskins.
I'm Deana Burke.
And this is Boys Club.
Wait, is it just Boys Club?
It's just Boys Club.
The Boys Club podcast?
No. Just Boys Club.
I'm coming off of 3 days at Bitcoin Nashville and honestly still processing.
Well, that's what we're doing here today, right?
That's what we're doing here today. We're going to debrief on my experience at Bitcoin Nashville and in particular the Trump speech, which was on day 3, Saturday afternoon. And yeah, excited to talk with you about it. We haven't talked about it at all together.
We haven't talked about it at all. I mean, I texted you and I said, dying to hear how it's going. And you just texted back like a emoji, a melting emoji. And I thought, ooh. Well, let's get into it. Okay, so 3 days at Bitcoin Nashville. For those who don't know, Bitcoin Nashville used to be Bitcoin Miami, long-standing crypto conference.
I think before that it was even something else.
Wow.
I saw in the announcement about Bitcoin Nashville going to Bitcoin Las Vegas next year.
Oh, cool. I'll go.
There was some retrospective.
I volunteer as tribute.
I don't know.
It's birthed from the Bitcoin magazine, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is based, my understanding is it is based here in Nashville. 20,000 people.
Wow.
Reportedly.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. Really huge. Took over the conference center in downtown Nashville, which is this huge building and conference center. And just a little stage setting. So Tennessee is a state where you can carry a loaded gun around.
Okay.
And many people do.
Oh my God.
I live here, so that's also important context. I don't know why.
Hi, I'm Deana Burke and I live in Nashville. It's like a confession.
And I'm from upstate New York, Hudson Valley, and Nashville. I've been living here for about 3 years, and it's strikingly different, I would say, in its approach to what freedom means, what individual freedom and individual liberty means. And I think a really tangible representation of that is the gun thing. That is weird, honestly, if I'm being totally transparent about it.
Yeah.
So that's Nashville, Bitcoin Nashville, 20,000 people, I guess, is what the guy said. And it's, your classic conference. So there's like an expo hall where there's booths, and then there's a few different stages, and there's one main stage, which is in this huge room, huge, which is like a full wall size screen.
Can I ask you how it felt different from, let's say, South by or Permissionless or like a... Did it feel like your average conference, or did it have a different vibe? I
would say that the first 2 days of the conference felt more like a traditional conference, especially the first day was like the industry day. So there was a lot of suits and ties and people talking about mostly like financial services side of crypto. I would say compared to other crypto conferences, I experienced very little conversation about technology. It was a conversation about money. It wasn't really a conversation about tech, which is really different than ECC, which is like everyone is a founder and talking about the new infra app that they're building. And that was, with the exception of one moment, which I'll talk about when I talk about Trump, that was pretty much not there. It was all money and freedom.
Okay.
Those were the themes.
Okay.
But in terms of like level of fidelity and production, it was a huge production and very expensive seeming.
Who was like the main sponsor? Do you know?
Kraken was the sponsor.
Okay.
There was another exchange sponsor and a lot of sponsors that were tiny on the wall, and I didn't recognize any of them, basically.
Interesting. I'm just curious about, like, I don't know. We're so steeped in the Ethereum community of it all that like this whole other world, and I feel like I have no context for it.
It's another world.
Yeah.
It's a totally different world.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting it to feel so different. I was like, oh, I go to crypto conferences all the time, many times a year. And this felt very different, where not only was it like, I don't recognize the companies that are sponsoring, or with the exception
of the people, or
Kraken,
like,
it was the people. I was like, who's here? What's going on? That said, we had a really cute coffee breakfast with about like 8 or 10 Boys Club girlies, which was
so cute. I love that. I love that so much.
It was the best, by far the best time. of the conference, and everyone who came out was just adorable. And that was honestly like, I was like, oh, this is why we did this. This is so nice. And I had such a nice time. So anyway, the conference was, the first 2 days was, this sort of other side that was very Bitcoin, that's very money, that's very freedom. And the few panels that I saw, one, I tweeted about this, but one was a conversation between a BlackRock guy and a Bloomberg guy, and they were talking. The BlackRock guy was basically shilling his ETFs, as you do when you're on the main stage at Bitcoin. You're talking about your ETFs, and that was fine. And the Bloomberg guy, they were both super buttoned up dudes. And then the next panel that came on after them was a guy in a cowboy hat, a guy with basically like no shoes on, a guy that said "tax this dick" on his t-shirt, and a line literally that was said on stage was "support your local black market." It was so fringy.
Whoa.
In terms of
whoa.
They were really, I don't know that they said like fuck BlackRock, but we're basically like the banks and the TradFi is all trying to buy your Bitcoin and take your power away, essentially, is what the conversation was. And
take your freedom, your personal liberties.
Take your personal liberties, yeah. And there was a lot of applause for those guys, I'd say. They were very much supported in the room in a way that the BlackRock conversation wasn't. So that was kind of interesting. And then day 3 is Trump. And
did you wait in an hour-long line to get in?
I did. I did. So I got a babysitter. My sweet babysitter came, and I was like, hey, I'm going to see Trump in Nashville, in downtown Nashville. So, if anything happens, take care of the kids.
Oh, I don't know.
There's like a feeling of like,
I hate that.
You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean, but like, I don't like thinking about you in that type of environment.
I know. It's weird. It's so weird. There was another person that I talked to who said that their team, like a very legitimate team, didn't send their people there because of security risk. Because they were like, we don't want to send any of our people. We don't have like that liability. Anyway, so that was Saturday afternoon.
I saw an amazing tweet that was like, Boys Club is going to the Bitcoin Nashville conference, so we don't have to, which I was like, I love that. That's honestly, I feel like it should be the tagline of Boys Club. Boys Club did X, so we don't have to. Like, listen to this podcast, read this episode, went to this conference.
Totally. Yeah, that sums it up. I love that. I love that too. So Saturday afternoon, and yes, the lines were crazy. Parking was crazy. It was just like a zoo. In downtown Nashville, which is already kind of zoo-like, but there's so many people and waiting on a long line. And I'm immediately present to like, wow, this is a very different person. I was at a political rally is what it really boils down to. It was like, okay, this is really no longer about Bitcoin. Certainly we're far away from the technology, very far away from the technology. We're closer to the money side of Bitcoin, but we're now in Trump land. There was a guy, we were waiting online. I brought my husband with me, and we were waiting online, and there was a guy with like a fake ear patch thing, where Trump got shot, whatever. And he's like passing out stuff online. I'm like, no, thank you. And then there's another guy who's like anti-seed oils, and he's passing out his meat sticks. And I'm just, it's that.
Oh my God. Environment. Oh my God, you're describing some very distinct people.
Then finally we get into this big room, and it's huge. Reportedly 8,000 people. I don't know. That seems like a lot of people in one room, but it was huge. We got in about an hour before Trump was meant to go on at 2, and every seat was filled.
Wow.
And it was standing room only already an hour before. And there was a really funny thing that was happening when we walked into the room, which was that there was a Bitcoin core dev who was doing a presentation.
Okay.
And the room had thousands and thousands of people in it. Every seat was filled. The only technical thing that I saw was this poor guy who had he will never be in front of that many people again in his life.
Oh God.
And he was
talking about like deploying I don't even know
a centralized pool versus decentralized pool. And his slides were black and white text.
Was everybody's talking?
Everyone's just totally checked out, and this guy is doing his best, like he's doing his darndest, and
his damnedest.
He's really, really trying. It was like, wow, okay, no one cares about that at all here.
Yeah,
and then we're waiting, and it's 2:00. And
so, what are you and Dave doing? Like chatting, or are you just on your phones?
We're talking, and
you're like date night.
Yeah, hot date idea. Let's get a babysitter and go to the Trump rally. Honestly, we were kind of like soaking it in because it was such a
experience,
and we didn't get a seat, but honestly we're kind of happy to not get a seat because it was like let's be on foot. just let's just
And
be
you
honest
guys were
about
really worried about like
it. It's
safety.
just a lot of people, and yeah, I don't know. It just didn't feel.
Okay.
I didn't feel like a safe environment.
Yeah.
They were also playing ads on the big screens, and so there was like a movie, God Bless Bitcoin, that they were playing over and over again,
Okay.
and it's all fear-based rhetoric where
Okay.
a lot of the Bitcoin stuff is about how the American government is failing you, the dollar is failing, and hyper Bitcoinization is around the corner because the dollar is going to fail. And that's the main message from the conference. That's literally the line that they were running in the ads, the first thing that they were saying. And there's something that is so disturbing about that because it implies so much damage.
Yeah.
If the dollar were to fail and hyper Bitcoinization were to happen, which is the goal in that room, it means that there's so much destruction, not of value, but of people's lives, that so many people around the world depend on dollar and its stability. And
it's detached from that reality, it seems like.
It is, or maybe it isn't, and they just don't care. But it's upsetting to see a want for something that feels so destructive. Yeah. And so that's happening, and we're watching the ads, and we're kind of like, this is weird. And then I tweeted about this, but they played a Beyonce song, Texas Hold'em. At that point, it was past 2. So we're all just like a totally rapt audience that's waiting for Trump to come out. And then they stop it midway through.
Someone in the back's like, where's the phone? Where's the phone? Where's the phone? Next song, next song.
Then finally, an hour later, he comes out. And man, I think it's one of the weirder experiences of my life, seeing him speak.
Was it, he comes out, does the crowd go wild?
Crowd goes wild. But the weirdest thing is that we've been waiting for an hour, and we're all just at the edges of our seat. First, they start playing. Man,
this is such a huge get for this conference.
Such a huge get, but I think they paid him quite a lot of money for it. Rumored to be in the world of $15 million. Don't quote me on that, but that was what the rumor mill is saying. Yeah. So a new version of God Bless America starts playing really loud on the speakers, like really, really loud, but like it's kind of a new version. And he just
it's like a Fred Again remix of God Bless America.
Exactly. And he just comes out and he stands on the stage while the song is playing and while people are standing and clapping.
Okay.
And to me, it felt like, when you do karaoke and you get into the song and you're like, man, this is actually, I didn't realize this was like a really long song. And now I'm like stuck here with this mic singing.
Yeah.
And I gotta see this thing through.
I have to do it now. I'm here.
I'm committed. That's what it felt like, where he was standing there and I was like, are we still, it was like the final verse.
But don't you think he kind of likes it?
I think he does. I'm sure he does, but it felt to me a little too long, a little too much.
Did you see the when he was at the RNC and there was like the Trump with the Broadway lights?
I didn't see that.
Did you not see this? Oh my gosh. There was like Broadway lights that had Trump. You know what I'm talking about? Broadway lights.
Yeah.
And he like came on stage and there's all these pictures of him standing in front of it. And it went totally viral on Twitter. And basically people being like, he's such a queen. He's so cunty. Like he's so Broadway. Like he's so
Broadway. Honestly, that checks out. That my main takeaway was that he's an entertainer.
He is an entertainer.
He's an entertainer. And honestly, there were points in his speech where I was like laughing. And of course, this goes without saying, deeply problematic, but he knows how to work the crowd and riff. His riffs were crazy, insane person riffs, but he's keeping the crowd engaged the whole time. And it was weirdly funny in moments and extremely sad and dark and just terrifying in other moments. But
I'm dying to hear what you thought of the content of the speech, because what I heard from someone yesterday was the speechwriter did a good job. And for the most part, Trump did a good job. He said the right words in the right order.
Exactly. Totally. That's totally true. So I was standing behind the teleprompter so I could see his script and then I could see him and what he was saying. And it's striking the difference in how he talks about things that he cares about and how he talks about things that he doesn't care about, but someone's given him a script to say. And it was very obvious that someone gave him his talking points on crypto and they were super cohesive and he was saying the right things. He talked about Operation Choke Point 2.0. He talked
about
Operation Choke Point is 2.0 is basically this concerted effort to regulate the financial services industry in such a way so that they aren't servicing crypto businesses, and that cuts off the lifeline for the crypto businesses.
Okay.
So a expression of that is sometimes when banks are like, if you use an exchange, we're going to shut down your account.
Yes.
That's kind of a version of Operation Choke Point 2.0. So he was talking about he's going to stop Operation Choke Point 2.0. He got the biggest applause that I heard was about firing Gary Gensler. And the really interesting thing about that, which actually was part of the reason why I was like, man, this guy is an entertainer and he knows how to work a room, is he is going through and like reading his lines around crypto, and he's making all these proclamations. He's coming out and he's saying these big things. And he goes, on day one, I'm going to fire Gary Gensler. The room goes crazy, insane applause. And then he goes, whoa, I didn't know you guys hated him that much. And he goes, hold on, I'm going to say it one more time. On day one of my presidency, I'm going to fire Gary Gensler. And then the crowd erupts again. It was so crazy in the moment because he obviously didn't know. And that was a really honest reaction where he was like, oh my gosh. And it was really obvious to me in that moment where I was like, oh, he's beta testing stuff in real time. Okay. Lean startup. He's testing and iterating.
He's looking for product market fit.
Totally. And he got big product market fit there. And he was like, okay, let's double down and let's dig in here. And at the beginning of his speech, he comes out and he's like thanking people and acknowledging people who were in the room. And he goes, yeah, Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss. Yeah, good guys, great guys. Male models with a brain. One brain. He just said male models with a brain, which was the funniest part of it. But people, and he's like listing people, Michael Saylor, Ron Paul, Kathy Wood, and like and there's various levels of applause for each one. And you can kind of tell that he's like clocking who
people are excited about. Yeah.
People are excited about and who's going to riff on. Kid Rock he's a good guy, talented guy.
As Kid Rock does.
As Kid Rock does. He had a funny line. Billy Ray Cyrus was in the room and he was like, how'd you get such a liberal daughter? And people love that.
Poor Miley. She's like, don't bring me into it.
I think the biggest thing, like you said, was he said a lot of the right things in the right order about crypto, but I don't think he gives a shit about crypto. Here's what he cares about. He cares about himself and his own image. He cared a lot and riffed a lot on the election. I do think he cares about America first. He kept coming back to, and I do think that that's something he cares about. He basically like has a script and then he has these riff moments.
Can you imagine working for him? Can you imagine working for this man?
I can't.
Just being like, oh my God, don't stop.
Back to the script. Stop. Back to the script. Back to the script.
Please.
The teleprompter stops and he's like going off in these crazy lanes. And one was about Joe Biden and he starts talking about Joe Biden. And then it's interesting. It's almost like he didn't have his talking points for Kamala Harris yet. He mentioned her. He was like, she's a radical leftist, something to that effect. But he had a lot of juice on Joe Biden. And he like didn't really have the...
Man, that gives me some hope.
I just think he hasn't gotten it yet. But
he hasn't gotten it yet, but the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
The quote that I saw rolling around the internet was something to the effect of like, have fun with your Bitcoin or whatever else you're doing.
Yeah.
What was that line?
Yeah, he was like, have fun with your crypto or your Bitcoin or whatever else you play with or something like that.
Which is a clear indicator to me that he's just doesn't give a fuck.
One of the first things he said when he came on, he was like, last night I was at a evangelical Christian convention or event. Here today I'm at Bitcoin, and then tomorrow I go to Wisconsin or Minnesota or something and I do a huge rally there.
He's baiting to his constituencies.
Totally. He said things about crypto. Someone gave him some great talking points, but I didn't believe him. One of the things he said was like, all these high IQ individuals in the room, everyone in here is like smart, is basically what he was saying. And I'm sure he says that in every room, but he went into this thing about how his uncle or something was an MIT professor. And it was an incomprehensible couple minutes of his uncle or something who was an MIT professor. And then he at some point came back to like how his sons know so much about crypto. And it was very much, you guys have your thing that you guys are nerdy about. And that was also underlined in that last thing that he said around like, you guys go play with your crypto, whatever it is. You guys are weird nerds that care about this thing that is in my interest now because you guys are a big enough voting block. But I only know enough to say the words. And that was what it was. But what do you think?
It's just like a religious constituency. People who are fervent about crypto, especially I think Bitcoiners. and Ethereum people, everybody in crypto who's like have this weird religious fervor, even to your specific tribe around it in a way that's very strange to me. But growing up religious reminds me so much of religion. And it's your ideology, it's your values, it's your belief system. It guides the things that you're interested in and the work that you do. And so it's so obvious to me that they're approaching it the same way that you do a religious voting block.
Yeah.
Like you go to the evangelicals and you bait them with the things that they care about. You talk about abortion and you talk about the family values. You hit the talking points that they care about that are like intrinsically aligned with the things that are their deepest motivators.
Mm-hmm.
And you pull them in and you promise all these things and you talk about the Supreme Court, and that's what you do. And then you get those people really, really excited and then they vote for you. And some delusional people think that, oh, this person is actually religious or a Christian or whatever. It's the same thing here. Like, what are the talking points? What are the things that these people care about? What are the 2 or 3 things that I can throw at them that feel like actual legitimate changes that could be made that would further their ideological beliefs along, and say them out loud and then go to the next place the next day? And I don't know. It seems it's like so transparent.
Yeah.
I actually can't even imagine someone who genuinely believes that Trump gives a shit.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm like, apart from wanting a candidate that is like pro business and pro small business and pro technology in America, I honestly am like, there's much bigger things to care about in the world. And maybe that's just because like I don't have a big enough bag to give a fuck. But that's sort of my perspective, is like, I want somebody who's pro business. I want somebody who's pro small business. I want somebody who wants to keep technology and innovation in America. And I want all these other things. But in terms of like how it relates to crypto, those are the things that I care about. And I want somebody who's competent, who I can loosely held trust. And that really, that's not Trump.
Yeah, totally. I think all eyes on Kamala to see what she comes out with in terms of her views on crypto. I think we're like all waiting on bated breath. There was a moment last week where they were like, Kamala is going to speak at Bitcoin Nashville. No world would she have spoken on that stage. No, not in any universe.
It would have been bad.
It would have been really bad. The whole thing felt honestly like a Republican community gathering and libertarian leaning Republican community gathering. And that was a crazy thing to think was going to happen. And honestly, I think it was in bad faith of the Bitcoin magazine CEO to plant that rumor. Maybe he was talking to her people, but he knew that wasn't going to happen. And so I'm having an existential crisis about my alignment with this world. I like ran into some neighbors yesterday and they were like, so how was the conference? And I was just like, I was so defensive in that conversation. I was like,
oh man, I can't even imagine. Honestly, it would have been painful to be standing there watching you talk about it.
I don't know what's going on, but that was a crazy weekend. So that's that.
Wow. Thank you for your service and your time and doing the work for us all. Kind of a downer, honestly.
Sorry.
No problem. It is what it is. All beliefs are our own. I don't know. I feel like we need some disclaimer here.
If you are a Trump supporter and identify as a Republican with him as your leader, it's different identifying as a Republican and identifying as a Trump Republican. I think those feel like very, very different things to me. And yeah, I think if you identify as a Trump Republican and you feel like I miscategorized what happened this weekend, slide into my DMs and let me know. And I'm curious, genuinely curious what people think.
A core premise and belief of Boys Club and value is we're post shame, post judgment. So that stretches to politics as well.
Totally.
So even if you have a different POV, genuinely, I mean it, curious to understand why and how you approach this type of thing.
Totally. And also permission for our views to change too on things, because
the facts change, I change my mind.
Totally. All right.
Okay. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.